historians.
Have you ever wondered how far back your ideas truly go? When you make a moral choice, heal with medicine, or teach a child, you're not just acting in the moment. You're carrying the whispers of civilizations that existed thousands of years ago. The modern world may shine with glass towers and digital light, but its foundations are ancient, carved in clay, stone, and sacred scrolls. Human wisdom began not with machines, but with meaning. Our ancestors asked the same questions we do today. Who am I? How should I live? What keeps me healthy? And though their world looked different, their answers became the roots of our modern life. So let's travel back, century by century, across deserts, temples, and empires, to uncover how ancient wisdom became the code of the modern mind. Part 1. The Dawn of Thought, 3000 to 1000 BCE. In the ancient land of Mesopotamia, around 3000 BCE, humanity did something extraordinary. They learned to write. Simple marks pressed into clay tablets became cuneiform, the world's first written script. But writing wasn't just communication. It was the dawn of education. The Sumerians built the first schools called Eduba, where students learned to read, write, and count. Imagine the first classrooms, the first teachers, the first exams. Every modern university, every textbook, every diploma is a descendant of those humble clay lessons. Meanwhile, along the Nile, the Egyptians were mastering another kind of knowledge, the knowledge of life itself. They studied the stars to predict the floods, observed nature to heal the body, and built their entire society around Ma'at, the principle of balance, truth, and order. Ma'at wasn't just religion, it was ethics. It taught that harmony between humans and nature created justice, health, and peace. Today, when we talk about moral balance, social justice, or sustainability, we're speaking the language of ancient Egypt. But wisdom wasn't limited to Africa or Mesopotamia. In the east, along the Indus River, another civilization flourished. The Indus Valley, around 2500 BCE. Here, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa displayed advanced urban planning, straight streets, drainage systems, public baths, proof that health and cleanliness were central to their way of life. Their ancient practices laid the foundations for public health, sanitation, hygiene, and community well-being. And to the Far East in early China, the Shang and Zhou dynasties began to shape a worldview that would influence billions. The belief that harmony between heaven, earth, and humanity sustains life. This was the seed of Confucian ethics and Taoist balance. Every time we talk about mental health, mindfulness, or emotional equilibrium, we echo those early Chinese ideas of balance and moral duty. From Mesopotamia's schools to Egypt's healers, from India's planners to China's philosophers, by 1000 BCE, humanity had already discovered that wisdom wasn't power over others. It was harmony within ourselves and our world. The next great leap came not with weapons, but with words, the age of philosophy. In ancient Greece, the 5th century BCE saw the rise of thinkers who dared to question everything. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle didn't just think. They taught humanity how to think. Socrates believed knowledge was born through questioning. Plato imagined a world ruled by philosophers, those guided by truth, not greed. Aristotle built systems of logic that became the foundation of science, politics, and ethics. Our modern education system, critical thinking, structured debate, and moral reasoning all spring from their ideas. Every schoolchild who asks why is, in essence, a little Socrates. But while Greece sought wisdom through reason, India was exploring the inner world. Between the 9th and 6th centuries BCE, sages composed the Upanishads, poetic dialogues on life, death, and consciousness. They asked, what is the self? What is reality? Their answer was profound. The divine is within. The same idea shapes modern psychology and mindfulness today, the belief that peace begins inside, not outside. Then came Buddha in the 5th century BCE, a prince who walked away from luxury to understand suffering. He discovered that life's pain can be eased not through wealth, but through awareness. Meditation, compassion, and mental clarity, the tools we use today for therapy and healing, are echoes of his enlightenment. Meanwhile, in China, two masters shaped Eastern civilization. Confucius, the teacher, believed that virtue began with respect for parents, society, and self. His lessons became the foundation of Asian education and moral order. And Lao Tzu, the sage of Taoism, taught something timeless: flow with nature, not against it. His idea of wu wei, effortless action, is what modern psychology calls the flow state. From mindfulness to minimalism, Lao Tzu's quiet wisdom hums through modern life. Further west, in Persia, healers and scholars were merging science with spirituality. The Persian Avesta text spoke of cleanliness, herbs, and the moral link between health and purity. Egyptian medicine continued to evolve, with physicians like Imhotep, later worshipped as a god of healing. He studied anatomy, diagnosed diseases, and understood that medicine is as much about spirit as it is about body. By 300 BCE, across the ancient world, the great patterns of human wisdom were complete. The Greeks gave us rational thought, the Indians, spiritual psychology, the Chinese, moral balance, the Persians and Egyptians, the art of healing. Humanity had created the blueprints of philosophy, medicine, and education, and those blueprints are still the scaffolding of modern civilization. As kingdoms rose and fell, wisdom became global. Alexander the Great carried Greek ideas to Asia, merging East and West. In Alexandria, Egypt, the world's greatest library became a beacon of knowledge. Scientists like Euclid studied geometry, Herophilus explored anatomy, and Eratosthenes measured the Earth's circumference with astonishing precision. The age of myth was transforming into the age of method. At the same time, Rome inherited Greek philosophy and built upon it with law and discipline. The Roman Republic introduced civic education, teaching citizens not just to obey laws, but to understand justice. Thinkers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius developed Stoicism, a philosophy that taught strength through self-control and virtue through understanding. You can't control what happens, they said, but you can control how you respond. That single sentence is the ancestor of modern psychology's cognitive behavioral therapy, the idea that thoughts shape emotions, not the other way around. Meanwhile, in India, massive centers of learning like Nalanda University emerged. Scholars studied mathematics, medicine, logic, and literature. Thousands of monks and scientists from across Asia came to learn. Nalanda wasn't just a school, it was the first global university. In China, doctors compiled the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's classic of medicine. It described acupuncture, herbal treatment, and the energy flows of the human body, ideas that still guide traditional medicine today. So, by the 5th century CE, the seeds of modernity were already planted. The Greeks gave us logic, Rome gave us law, India gave us consciousness, China gave us balance, and the human journey of wisdom was far from over. The Golden Ages to the Renaissance, 6th century CE, 18th century CE. The Golden Light of Knowledge, 6th to 10th century CE. The world had entered a new age. Empires shifted, religions spread, and ancient knowledge found new guardians. The flame of wisdom that began in Greece, India, China, and Egypt was now carried by the scholars of the Islamic Golden Age. From the sands of Arabia rose cities like Baghdad, Cordoba, and Damascus, glittering with libraries, observatories, and universities. The House of Wisdom, founded in the 8th century in Baghdad, became the heart of global learning. Here, ancient Greek texts were translated into Arabic. Aristotle, Plato, Galen, and Hippocrates found new life. But the scholars didn't stop at translation. They transformed knowledge. Al-Kindi, known as the philosopher of the Arabs, blended Greek logic with Islamic thought, creating early psychology. Al-Farabi wrote about ethics and political philosophy, inspiring ideas that shaped European humanism centuries later. And then came Avicenna, Ibn Sina, the medical genius whose book The Canon of Medicine ruled European universities for over 600 years. He classified diseases, studied contagion, and taught that mind and body are one, ideas that predate modern psychiatry. Even the concept of quarantine, public hygiene, and medical ethics came from this age. In Spain, Averroes Ibn Rushd revived Aristotle's reason, arguing that faith and logic are not enemies, but allies. His writings helped ignite Europe's Renaissance, proof that ancient wisdom passed through Arabic hands would reawaken the Western world. And in Persia, Al-Razi, Rhazes, became the father of experimental medicine. He emphasized observation over superstition, experimentation over blind belief, the very principles of the modern scientific method. While the Middle East thrived, India continued its own golden era. The 7th century scholar Charaka expanded Ayurveda, describing how emotions affect health. The surgeon Sushruta detailed procedures still admired today. Their belief? Healing wasn't just physical, it was emotional, moral, and spiritual. In China, the Tang dynasty saw the rise of medical encyclopedias, Confucian schools, and the perfection of acupuncture and herbal science. Scholars like Sun Simiao wrote, "A great physician must have a heart full of compassion." Modern medicine still echoes that sentiment in the Hippocratic Oath. From the sands of Arabia to the palaces of Chang'an, from Indian monasteries to Persian hospitals, the 6th to 10th centuries were not dark ages. They were an explosion of light, where ancient knowledge was preserved, refined, and prepared for its next great rebirth. The Bridges of Civilization, 11th to 13th century CE. The world began to connect. Trade routes like the Silk Road didn't just carry silk and spices, they carried ideas. In this era, a scholar in Baghdad could study Greek logic, Indian numbers, and Chinese inventions all in one library. The number 0, born in India, traveled west through Arab mathematicians, changing mathematics forever. Can you imagine modern science, technology, or computers without 0? Meanwhile, Europe was slowly awakening from centuries of turbulence. Contact with the Islamic world through Spain, Sicily, and the Crusades reintroduced Europe to its forgotten heritage. Universities began to rise. Bologna, Paris, Oxford, built on the same model as the academies of Athens and the libraries of Baghdad. Education became formalized. Knowledge became sacred again. The concept of a university, a place where all knowledge meets, came directly from this merging of East and West. Medicine advanced too. Hospitals based on Persian and Indian models spread through Europe. Public health became a civic duty. And through translation centers in Toledo and Cordoba, Aristotle, Plato, Avicenna, and Al-Razi entered Latin, shaping European thought for centuries to come. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Song dynasty, 10th to 13th centuries, revolutionized technology. Paper money, the compass, gunpowder, and printing all emerged from China. These inventions didn't just transform economies, they transformed thinking. Printing made knowledge accessible. For the first time, learning was no longer limited to the elite. It was spreading like fire through dry grass. And far in the East, Japan developed Zen, a philosophy of presence, simplicity, and mindfulness. The samurai code of Bushido blended Confucian ethics and Buddhist calm, a moral psychology still studied today. The 11th to 13th centuries were bridges between continents, cultures, and consciousness. Humanity had begun to realize that wisdom has no borders. The Renaissance of Reason, 14th to 16th century CE. Then came the moment of rediscovery, the Renaissance. From Florence to Venice, Paris to London, Europe awakened like a sleeper, remembering a dream. Artists, inventors, and scholars turned to the ancients for inspiration. The rediscovery of Plato, Aristotle, and Avicenna sparked an intellectual wildfire. Leonardo da Vinci studied anatomy as carefully as he painted the Mona Lisa's smile. His notebooks were filled with echoes of Greek geometry, Indian mathematics, and Chinese mechanics. Copernicus and Galileo, inspired by earlier Arabic astronomers, redefined humanity's place in the cosmos. In medicine, Andreas Vesalius mapped the human body, while Paracelsus revived the idea from ancient Persia and India that nature itself is medicine. The Hippocratic idea of do no harm returned stronger than ever. Education flourished. The invention of the printing press by Gutenberg in the mid-15th century was a turning point. Knowledge, once trapped in temples and palaces, now flowed freely to the people. Ancient wisdom became a living force again. Philosophers like Erasmus, Thomas More, and later Francis Bacon asked the timeless question, what is truth? Bacon's scientific method, observation, experimentation, reasoning, was not new. It was the rebirth of the rational traditions of Aristotle, Al-Razi, and Chinese empiricism. The Renaissance wasn't just about art, it was about rebirth. Humanity rediscovered that knowledge, faith, and imagination could coexist. The ancient harmony of body, mind, and spirit was returning to the world stage. The Age of Enlightenment, 17th to 18th century CE. By the 17th century, humanity stood on the shoulders of its ancestors. The world had changed. Telescopes peered into the heavens and microscopes into cells. But behind these inventions were ancient ideas: curiosity, logic, balance, and ethics. Isaac Newton, the father of modern physics, once said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Those giants were the philosophers, healers, and teachers of the ancient world. The Enlightenment was the age when science and philosophy danced together. Thinkers like Descartes, Locke, and Spinoza questioned reality, morality, and knowledge, much like the sages of the Upanishads or the dialogues of Plato. Ethics became the backbone of progress. Education became a right, not a privilege. Hospitals became humane, and reason became sacred. In medicine, William Harvey mapped the circulation of blood, echoing ancient Chinese ideas of energy flow. In psychology, Hume and Kant explored the nature of perception, reviving the old Indian question, what is the self? Even technology, from early engines to telescopes, was guided by ancient geometry, observation, and the belief that the universe follows natural laws, not divine randomness. By the 18th century, the modern world was rising, but its soul remained ancient. The industrial mind, 19th century CE. The 19th century roared to life with the sound of steam engines, iron wheels, and new machines. Humanity had entered the Industrial Revolution, and for the first time, people began to think that technology might be the new god of progress. But look closely. Behind the factories, wires, and engines, ancient ideas were still steering the world. Education became a universal dream. Schools spread across nations, teaching not only arithmetic and reading, but ethics and philosophy. The ancient belief that knowledge should be shared, born in Sumer, refined in Greece, and revived in the Renaissance, became law. Public education was the new temple of wisdom. Medicine underwent its greatest transformation. Scientists like Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch discovered germs and vaccines, realizing that disease wasn't a curse, it was science waiting to be understood. Yet their moral code, to heal, not to harm, echoed straight from Hippocrates, Sushruta, and Sun Simiao. In psychology, thinkers like Sigmund Freud explored the human mind, dreams, fears, and desires. His studies of the unconscious mind weren't new. They were modern versions of what Indian yogis, Buddhist monks, and Greek philosophers had meditated on for centuries. Know thyself, said Socrates, and now psychology was making it a science. The industrial age also transformed ethics. As cities grew and machines replaced hands, philosophers asked, are we losing our humanity? Thinkers like John Stuart Mill and Karl Marx revisited ancient moral questions: justice, fairness, the value of human life, for an age of factories and capital. Technology may have powered the machines, but ancient wisdom still powered the mind. The century of consciousness, 20th century CE. The 20th century, the most dramatic, devastating, and dazzling chapter in human history. Wars tore nations apart, science reached the stars, and psychology turned inward. After 2 world wars, humanity once again looked to its oldest teachers, to Buddha for compassion, to Confucius for ethics, to Aristotle for reason. The birth of the United Nations echoed ancient values of peace and universal brotherhood. The world realized, wisdom is not in conquest, it's in coexistence. Education transformed again. Progressive thinkers like Maria Montessori and John Dewey revived the ancient idea of learning through experience, not memorization. The Greek paideia, the Indian Gurukul, the Chinese academy, their spirits returned in modern classrooms focused on creativity, curiosity, and critical thinking. Medicine evolved into science. Penicillin saved millions, X-rays revealed the unseen, and surgeons began operating with precision once thought divine. Yet, the ethical oath to heal, to protect, to serve remained ancient. Every doctor who swears the Hippocratic Oath is connecting to a 2,500-year-old moral thread. And psychology. Psychology bloomed. Freud's ideas were challenged by Carl Jung, who spoke of archetypes and the collective unconscious, universal patterns in the human mind. Sound familiar? They're the same archetypes the Vedas called devas, the Greeks called gods, and the Chinese called energies. Meanwhile, the world of philosophy exploded with new thinkers: Sartre, Camus, Nietzsche, all asking ancient questions in modern tongues. What is meaning? What is freedom? What is truth? Even technology, as it advanced into radios, telephones, and early computers, carried the same human longing: connection. The same longing that built the Silk Road and the Library of Alexandria was now building networks of sound and light. And while the world raced forward, quiet movements looked backward to yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. These weren't trends, they were timeless. Scientists began to prove what the ancients knew: that the mind and body are one, that breath controls emotion, that silence heals. The 20th century rediscovered what the ancients had always said: progress without wisdom is power without direction. The digital soul, 21st century CE. And now, we stand here. In the 21st century, the age of AI, the internet, biotechnology, and space travel, humanity can now reach planets, clone cells, and simulate reality itself. But behind all this digital brilliance lies the same eternal question: who are we? Our world is faster, louder, and more connected than ever, yet our deepest needs remain ancient. We still seek balance, purpose, peace, and truth. Let's look around. Education today is global. Online classrooms connect continents. But the idea that knowledge belongs to everyone, that's ancient. That's the dream of Nalanda, of Alexandria, of the House of Wisdom. Medicine has become high-tech, with robotic surgery, gene editing, and nanotechnology. But our approach to wellness is circling back to its origins: holistic care, mindfulness, yoga, herbal medicine. We're realizing that the body, mind, and soul are not separate systems, but one. Philosophy and ethics are now guiding artificial intelligence and science. As we create machines that think, we face questions once reserved for the gods. What is consciousness? What is morality? What makes us human? Those are the same questions pondered by Plato, Confucius, and the Buddha. Only now we ask them in the language of algorithms. Psychology has become neuroscience, studying brainwaves, emotions, and the chemistry of thought. Yet the purpose remains ancient: to understand the self. Mindfulness apps, breathing techniques, gratitude journals, these are digital forms of millennia-old meditation practices. Even technology, the crown of the modern age, is being shaped by old wisdom. When we design sustainable cities, we echo the harmony of the Indus Valley. When we promote ethical AI, we revive Aristotle's virtue ethics. When we talk about work-life balance, we live the Taoist philosophy of Wu Wei, effortless action. And in healing arts, alternative medicine, acupuncture, Ayurveda, Reiki is once again respected worldwide. Science is validating what intuition once knew: that emotion, energy, and belief influence biology. So here we are, a species of smartphones and satellites, yet guided by scrolls and sutras. Ancient wisdom is not buried in museums. It lives in our hospitals, classrooms, and consciousness.